All right, guys, before we get the show started, a little bit of housekeeping. If you haven't heard this yet, stick to the end if you can stand it. First, Maverick and the Machine is sponsored by Jones Plantation Film. If you haven't seen the indie, soon-to-be cult classic Jones Plantation Film yet, go watch that film. It's available now at jonesplantationfilm.com. That's jonesplantationfilm.com, and on a bunch of the other big platforms.
Bo Jones!
You can also support the show and subscribe to Drew TV right now at Patreon and Gumroad. And we'll have links to both of those in the show notes. With a subscription, you first get 10% off everything at jonesplantationfilm.com and at the retail site for my upcoming film, Barnum World. Lots of bonus content, early access to shows, and access to our private live streams, which we'll be doing with former guests and friends of Drew TV. Those are going to be fun. You also get 10% off anything we release to the public moving forward. And that's just going to be a benefit of joining up now. Lastly, you'll be joining and connecting with a community of intelligent, thoughtful, like-minded people. Hopefully a big community soon. And for me, that is very important. I can't tell you how many times I've kept my sanity, having people I can actually talk to that understand what's going on. Okay, I'm done. That's my pitch. If you made it through, thank you. Now, let's launch this episode of Maverick in the Machine.
Insanity is what I call society. Don't tell me what to do, don't tell me how to be. I don't trust the government, I know they lie to me. They could like my body, yo, for my soul and mind to free.
All right, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, we've got Charlie Robinson in the building. Charlie, how you doing, man?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm here.
Are you going to make America great again?
My existence makes America great again, Charlie.
I agree. Absolutely, it does. If we had more of you in America and less of the people running the country, I think we'd be far better off.
If I was running America, it would be way better off. I can guarantee you too. What would be your first order of business if you ran America?
Close the Federal Reserve, have all those people brought out in handcuffs on camera. There's like a meme going around, and it's meant to be funny, but it's also kind of true. And it says they're doing it again because you didn't hang them the last time. And it reminds me that this behavior is sort of normalized and incentivized by the control structure. I mean, you look at the people who go before you. If you're a congressman, you see them committing crimes left, right, and center and getting the Presidential Medal of Freedom, right? And you go, well, wait a second. You mean I don't go directly to prison for the rest of my life? They're like, oh God, no. If you play the game this way, they make statues of you and put you on dollar bills and things like that. Like if you really play it well, you'll be celebrated as a hero and your crimes will be covered up forever.
Yeah, they have at this point, I think their fear level of the people is somewhere between 0 and 5% would be my guess. And the fatter they make us and the weaker they make us, it's I mean, if you talk to Legal Man who calls himself cyanide pilled, he thinks that we're like on the 1 yard line from the panopticon electronic prison. I don't agree with him on that, but he's got good points.
Well, I fear. Who knows? I mean, I don't know what yard line we're on, but it's a running play for sure. You know what I mean? They don't have. This is not a Hail Mary to get us into the panopticon. It can be as easy as a handoff when you bring in JD Vance, who's connected to Peter Thiel, who's connected to Elon Musk and Joe Lonsdale, and all the AI guys, and Eric Schmidt, and the Google Bros. All of these people are capable of building out, in conjunction with the existing surveillance state, a tyrannical control grid that's sold to us as freedom, right? But in actuality, it's a surveillance system that keeps you monitored with your money or the CCTV cameras, or maybe your money is tagged so that it only works geographically within 15 minutes of where your home is. So it's kind of a de facto 15-minute city. It's the plans are out there. It's a matter of, are they going to be able to finish the job and build this digital prison around us, and are we going to run sprinting into it and beg for our own enslavement under the guise of being protected by these lunatics? So I can't blame them for being cyanide pilled on this with regard to the tech side of things. And I kind of looked at the Kamala Trump presidency as a choose your own adventure book, where you open up, if Kamala wins, you get stunning bravery, and you add another 100 genders onto this, and women are competing in men's boxing, and men are competing in women's boxing, and it becomes a total nightmare. That door closed, so we don't get all of the woke stuff. But then the Trump door opened, and that's the technocracy. So I don't know how much better things will be. I just know that they'll be different. And given the last 4 years, I would certainly like for things to be no longer done the way they're doing them with Biden administration, and I'd like for it to be done differently. Unfortunately, I don't think that I get a bad feeling when I see those sorts of techno bros around him, because if anyone could do it differently, it would be them. And unfortunately, their idea is incompatible with freedom.
Oh yeah, you're going to get efficiency good and hard.
Yeah, that's what I'm afraid of.
Yeah. That's what I mean. I tell people this, they think I'm crazy. One of the things I love about Latin America is how inefficient the government is. It's like, I don't want to call out Berwick, but he's like, I don't pay taxes. I mean, this, and not to cut you off, I know you want to say something about this, but in Acapulco, for example, if you're cruising around, they drive around with the lights on, the lights flickering. They don't, if they come up on you and you give them the finger, they'll drive on. They just keep going. Like Berwick does it all the time. And,
yeah.
But wait, before we get going, before we start, do you want to say something to the audience of who you are, or give a couple sentences about yourself? You don't have to. I hate to do that to people, but
I'm an author. I started off writing books, and I wrote The Octopus of Global Control. I went on Berwick's podcast, The Anarchist, to tell him all about it. When we got done recording, he said, "You want to write a book together?" And I said, "Yes." And so we wound up working on The Controlled Demolition of the American Empire. That came out in 2020. That became a #1 bestseller on Election Day 2020, which is ironic because you'll never vote again if you read that book. And so it started with books, and it kind of evolved into podcasting as well, with Macroaggressions and Union of the Unwanted. And then recently, it has now turned into Activist Post and Natural Blaze. So there's now an online print component to this as well. I'm republishing other people's articles. I'm not writing articles right now for Activist Post, but it's a nice little gathering place for all the content from the people who I've been following for the last 15 years, and some of whom I've gotten to know pretty well, and I love their work. And it gets banned and censored everywhere else they put it, but it won't happen on Activist Post. So I invite all of them to send articles to me, and that I will take a look, and we'll put them up. So we've got a great batch of writers. Nobody technically works for us, but just writers who will contribute their work and make sure that it is seen. And so that started recently. That started January 1st, 2025. So we're brand new into this, and I'm excited to see where it goes.
Is there a video component to Activist Post?
There's a podcast component, and in that podcast section, there are videos. Yeah. So we're definitely making sure that everyone gets their information a little bit differently. When I wrote The Octopus of Global Control, I didn't have an audiobook for it until 2024. I wrote it in 2017. I didn't have an audiobook until 2024, which was a miscalculation on my end. We finally got it up and running, and the audiobook is a huge seller. So I think that there's just, people get their information a couple different ways. Sometimes they want to listen to it on a podcast. Sometimes they want to watch it in a video. Sometimes they need to read it, or maybe a combination of all three. So we're going to make sure that it is available for them in whatever format works best for their brains out there. And so, yeah, and that's something that the previous Activist Post didn't lean too heavily on that. But I think as we make this transition into a new era with the news, you've got to give the people the information a couple different ways. And you also have to remember they're going to look at it on their phones more than likely, and they're going to have a short attention span. So to the extent that you can keep it sort of short and sweet, Can't do that with Whitney Webb articles. They're like 45 minutes to read the entire thing because there's 80 footnotes and all that. So those will still be there as well. But for the, to the extent that we can, I want to try and boil the news down to shorter articles that people can get through real quick and then go on about their day.
So Activist Post, who's currently writing, who are you posting on there? Who do you have?
I've got everybody from the Independent Media Alliance. That's a group that Whitney Webb, Derek Brose, and Ryan Christian started in the summer of 2024. They invited me to be a part of it. I was thrilled, and then let them know, hey, I'm working on Activist Post. We're building out a brand new website. We're gonna have a section for anyone associated with the IMA, and their articles are going up. Not exclusively theirs, of course. They're after 15 years of reading articles myself on Activist Post. It was my number one go-to source of news, and elsewhere. I put together a list this summer of all the people whose articles I'd like to keep an eye on moving forward. In the list, I think when I stopped counting, it was like over 160 different authors. So there's going to be a variety there. We wanted to make sure that we got into several categories. I added crypto to it as one of the 8 categories. There's also solutions component to it as well. I think it's important that we talk about solutions because, so much of this can really cyanide pill you and put you in a spot where you just think, well, it's kind of over. And maybe in some respects it is. Maybe things are going to change and there'll be a new evolution here. But it's not totally over. We can still fight back. There's still some things that we can do to move ourselves out of the way or to build a parallel society and build something instead of trying to fix the current system, which is rightly, broken after all these years. You might as well just get outside of that system as much as you can and build something differently. So if people are writing articles or doing podcasts about homeschooling, I'm going to be publishing them. Anything like that. You've got a great system for collecting and cleaning rainwater. Let me hear about it. Let's talk about this. So I never thought I would do so much work on growing food or talking to people who grow food over the last couple of years on macroaggressions and whatnot. Like I can't tell you how many interviews I've had with people who are involved in growing food, but that is essential now these days, that we reevaluate the relationship we have with our grocery stores and with our banks and all these establishment industries that we've sort of just taken for granted and sort of trusted by default over the years. I think that's very dangerous to do. I don't think you can trust your bank. I don't think you can trust your grocery store anymore. You certainly can't trust your doctor. So there's a lot of these established industries that are filled with contradictions, lies, and outright criminality. So I think that for those with the eyes to see it, you're certainly not going to be getting your news any longer from MSNBC or Washington Post or Daily Mail or wherever. You've got to find different sources. And so one of the things we want to do is we'll be one of the sources that you can go to for information. I don't want it to be your only source. You got to get out there and get a variety. But if you can you find one place that will consistently have articles that seem to be coming from the future, compared to the mainstream media. You're never going to hear about this stuff till it's safe to talk about it 18 months later. Then you'll get an article about, hey, maybe these vaccines, like maybe we should start asking questions. But yeah, no kidding. Yeah, we should have been asking questions about them in 2020 when we were screaming about it, getting deplatformed, getting called, anti-science, getting told that we're talking about, horse paste and
kill grandma,
killing grandma, all that, only to be proven right a couple years later. Where are all the apologies from these people? We'll never get them, of course. So I think we have a great opportunity moving forward. The mainstream media is dead. They have nobody to blame but themselves. They slit their own throat with their lie after lie of, for everything from Biden's in top physical shape. Just look at him out there. He's a go-getter. He's burning the candle at both ends, and so a lot of people are like, this is not true. Like I'm not even a conspiracy adjacent person. I just watch MSNBC and even I know this isn't true. Like, Why are they lying to me? Well, they're lying to you because that's what they do. So we offer a place where you can make up your own decision about how you feel about it. Here's the article. Here's the information. I'm not going to tell you how to feel. You feel however you want to feel. But you read that article, I'm pretty sure you're going to feel one way. You're not going to feel like this is okay. So
Activistpost.com, activistpost.com,
activistpost.com, and naturalblaze.com. That's the alternative health website as well. That one we're going to rebuild in a couple months. We'll get that thing. First things first. We got to make sure Activist Post is.
By the way, I've got my MK Ultra shirt on.
Nice.
Where can they find? We'll have all your links for the delight of the audience. But where's this is at? Where did I find this?
Macroaggressions.io is my website, and there's a merchandise store that sells great shirts that have like.
Well, this shirt has MK. For those who can't see who are listening to this, it says MK Ultra in typewriter font.
Yeah,
that's all it says. I've had 2 people say something to me. It's like, oh, I like your shirt. I always say the same thing. If you know, you know. And they go, yeah, I know. Okay. Sure. Let's step back a second. So where are you from? Where were you born and raised?
I'm from Palm Springs, California, the hottest place in the world. I was there before Coachella, not the city, but before the music festival. Everyone knows it is. Oh, that's where Coachella is. Yeah. When I moved back there, I moved back at 2012 to 2015. I was there, and I was in my backyard, and I could hear, like, I couldn't tell who was playing, but I was so close that I could hear like the music from Coachella. So like,
what was like growing up there? Was it still like gay meth town back then?
The meth came later, but the gay part was always a Palm Springs staple. About a third of the population of Palm Springs is gay. It's like Palm Springs, Laguna Beach, and San Francisco. Like those are like in California. Those are like West Hollywood too. I would say those are like the spots. And so it was very safe. It was very quiet. As a kid in the late 70s, early 80s, we didn't have a whole lot of shopping options. I remember back to school, you had to get in a car, drive to LA to go to like a real mall and do all that. So we were a little bit behind the times. I think that's probably helpful. I went to a real small school from kindergarten through 8th grade. With Josh Homme from Queens of the Stone Age and I since we were 5 years old. So, I got to see that music scene kind of blow up right in the mid 80s, the desert sessions, people were dragging their amps out into the sand and having these generator parties out there, and bands were playing, and turned into like a whole music scene that, was cool for a while. But most people, when you're kids, you kind of, like any place, you kind of grow up and want to leave, want to get out of there. I actually wound up leaving at 13. I went to boarding school, and so I wasn't at home. I left home when I was 13, as opposed to like 18 when most people do it. I still had good relate. It wasn't like a bad kid or anything like that. It was a great experience. I must be honest. I had a fantastic time. And then off to USC in LA, and I could have done without USC. Really did not have a good experience there. Not just that was my first taste of like, hey, sometimes the system is rigged. Sometimes the system is kind of set up in a way that's that benefits one group at the expense of another group. I got that.
You talking about white hate at the place, or what are you talking about?
Poor hate. I was not one of the kids who wrote the check and just was able to go. I was on financial aid. I was on scholarships. I was on Pell Grants. I was on anything you could get. I was on it. And I noticed something that was happening to me, and I couldn't figure it out until my senior year, but because I didn't know any different. But I would always have a hold on my account when it came time to register for my classes. And I would just do this semester. Every semester, it was the same deal. I'd go to register, there'd be a hold on my account. I'd go to the registration office. They'd tell me I had to go to the financial aid office. Financial aid office would tell me I had to go to another office. And then this went on for 3 days. And then eventually I could register. And it wasn't until my senior year, second semester, I said to my roommate, it was and this was registered. We had to register on the phone and like push button, like for your classes and things like that. I called in. There was a hold on my account. I told my roommate, you watch, there's going to be a hold on my account. When I called in, put him on speakerphone. There's a hold on my account. I said, you know what I'm going to do this time? I'm going to do nothing. I'm not going to the registration office. I'm not going to the financial. I'm not going to go to any of the places that they tell me. In fact, I'm not going to do anything. And you watch. On Wednesday afternoon, I'll call in and that hold will magically be removed. After everybody else got all the classes that they want, it'll be removed. And he said, well, that's a bold strategy. We'll see how it plays out for you. And then Wednesday came. I said, here, let's do it. Put it on speaker, called, boom. What do you know? My hold was magically lifted. So if you couldn't afford to go there, well, like I couldn't, they made it as hard on you as possible. And every time you interacted with somebody at the school to try and get to the bottom of it, you were met with the rudest employees that they could hire, almost as if they intentionally found the rudest people who work at the university and put them in charge of this just to make your life miserable. I actually got called Whitey by a black lady one time.
Really?
And I was so demoralized I was at the end. It was like my first semester senior year where I was like, this happens all the time. Before I figured it out. And I went in there and it was the end of the day and she called me Whitey as I was walking out the door. And I just had to laugh. I was so beat down. Now I think like, oh, I should have gone over the counter after her. And that probably wouldn't have been good. But
what did she say exactly? Take it easy, Whitey.
Exactly like that.
Really?
Yeah, exactly like that.
Damn, too bad you didn't call her darky.
I would have been kicked out of school. Of course, it would have been a huge deal for me. It would. So I just learned that like the rules aren't necessarily the same for everybody in every case. If you have money, things change and things are doors open, things are easier. People treat you differently. And at USC, there are a lot of people with a lot of money, not the kids, of course, but their families.
Oh, yeah.
And I did not. Now I have a really good group of guy friends that I met my junior and senior year there, who I'm still close with and still hang out with. And they're fantastic. And they were never, ever like that. None of those guys were. But outside of that, it was, I got a real education on the man. Like, oh, the man's keeping you down. Well, I saw the man. The man is in charge of USC. they were that, and it's not that it's not like white versus black. It's powerful versus the powerless, or rich versus the poor. It's whoever's who's in a position to make the rules will make the rules that benefit them at the expense of everybody else. And I think that started me down this path of like having contempt for the system when the system is designed in a way so that it benefits very few at the expense of many.
Yeah. So you're there. This is the incubus for, is that the word I'm looking for? Incubus?
Yeah.
Incubator. Yeah. For the Charlie Robinson of today. So what did you study?
Marketing.
Okay.
Business marketing. Yeah. I was there.
Embarrassed you went to school for that. I'm embarrassed I went to college. I've way too much education. I'm embarrassed.
Bill Hicks is correct. Everybody in marketing should kill themselves. And with a marketing degree, I understand. I didn't do anything in marketing for a while. Well, I shouldn't say that. I bartended. After I got out of college, I was like, I don't want a real job. I just went through 4 years of a real grind, and I want to have fun. I want to bartend. And then it wasn't until later I wound up working for an ad agency. And that made me think that Bill Hicks was correct in his assessment of people with marketing degrees, because there's so much manipulation in it. And I guess to me, it was the most interesting side of business. I wasn't going to do accounting or anything like that. And finance, I thought it was boring, but marketing, you can have some fun with it. You can get creative. And and I enjoyed it. Once I got into those business classes, I actually enjoyed it. But the first 2 years, if I had to do it over again, I would have gone to a different school. I just didn't connect with the people there. I learned a lot, of course, made some mistakes. I was there during the Rodney King riots, which was fun. That was
Now,
about,
you were at USC when it was a dump, because I mean
oh,
we
yeah.
did the sound for Jones Plantation there at that. What's the guy's name? He put like
Lucas.
no, the other guy. There's a sound guy.
Oh, I don't know.
The sound studio there is called his name, and I can't remember. He's one of the all-time famous score guys in the history of
Hmm.
cinema. I don't remember his name,
Not
but
John Williams, is it?
it's the Williams.
Okay.
I think so. I
Yeah.
think that's what it's called. I could look it up, but I don't feel like getting on the internet.
Yeah.
Go
Great
ahead.
film school.
Yeah.
If you want to do that, you're in the right film town and you get a lot of connections. And
Oh, you go to film school there, it's like being made. It
For
really
sure.
is.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah. Yeah.
our
yeah.
guy that did the sound, he went there and now he teaches there. And I mean, there's
I
only go ahead.
I had a Cinema 190 class in the George Lucas Theater, which is big. It's every bit as big as Mann's Chinese Theater, if you've ever been in there.
Yeah.
And Mann's Chinese Theater is the biggest theater I've ever been in my life. And that USC film thing is so big. Our class fit, our entire class fit in the back 3 rows of it.
Yeah, that's 700 seats. I mean, I think we screened I did this crazy documentary called Lord of the Freaks, and it got a red carpet screening at the not the Chinese, but the other one. What's the other big one?
the
one they invented the red carpet for. Not the Chinese,
not the Cinemart one, is it?
no, it's right down the street. Wait. No, it's not the Chinese. It's the oh my god, I can't remember it now. The Egyptian. The Egyptian.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever been there.
Really?
No.
Oh, it's like that one. That's the Egyptian's the first red carpet.
Gotcha.
But it's like that. It's huge, 700 seats kind of thing. And so you go to school there. Are you living down there? And because that was when it was like the hood. It's not anymore.
I'm living down there. Yeah. I'm getting my bike stolen periodically. There's a house that you go to when you get your bike stolen, and it's the bike house. And out in the front yard, there are 500 bikes. They're all piled up like a mountain of bikes. And you go back over there, and there's some dude sitting on the steps there. And they go, "Hey man, what do you need?" And you go, I need to buy my bike back. And they go, "Which one is yours?" I'm like, "It's this one." And the reason why I knew it was mine, I got it from, I don't know how I wound up with it, but it had a Tony the Tiger sticker right on the front of it. And that's how I knew it was mine. I could, in a world of black beach cruisers, it's the only way I could tell the difference. So it would be like this drill where you go to your accounting class at 8 a.m. You come out, your bike is stolen. Your crypto lock is just there. They've hit it with Freon, opened it up in about 2 seconds. You then have to leave campus, go across the street down there, go to the bike house, buy your bike back from them, and do that process over and over, or buy whichever bike you want. You could buy whatever bike you want. I was a purist. I wanted to keep my Tony the Tiger bike for as long as possible, even though it kept getting stolen. But that's, so it's the hood. It's a terrible place. You can't, everything that you hear about living, it's kind of hard to say when you're at USC. It's hard to say I live in the hood, because you do technically, but then you go on campus and it's at least back then it was sort of like a fortress. I mean, they were the biggest college, university, police force in the country was USC's. And so they had a lot of people there. I never really had any problems on campus, but off campus, I mean, things got stolen all the time. People, you'd see I saw a guy running down Fraternity Row, red pants, red jacket, red bandana, running. I've never seen anybody run that fast. Jump a wall. I don't think he even touched the wall, but jumped the wall. And everyone just kind of looks around like, well, it's just another Friday night here. I don't know what that gentleman was doing, but he was running from somebody, and nobody's going to catch him as fast as he's going. So we got educated on how what you do and don't do with the natives around there. We saw, we had an experience one night sitting out at a fast food restaurant, sort of out on the tables out in front. and watch this white van pull up. And we're just eating. We're like, what's going on? Guy gets out of the driver's seat, goes around the back, opens up both doors of the back. Come on. Get out of here. Get out of here. And he said, all these people come out in like hospital gowns. All these people are, and then he closes up the van, gets in the driver's, drives off and leaves like 6 lunatics straight out of the insane asylum that he just dumped on the corner. And they're in hospital gowns, like with it open in the back and everything. And they're like mulling around. I was like, oh my God, like they really are just opening up the nut houses and letting them out onto the streets. And we watched it with our own eyes. So, you always have to have your head on a swivel down there in that part of town. I think it's probably a good lesson for all the newbies that come in as freshmen. They're like, oh, sure, are you begging for money with this really sad story about X, Y, and Z? Sure, I'll give you some money. And then by the time you're a senior, it's like, hey, what's up, James? Hey, what's up, man? You like know them by the first, and they're still giving you the same. Hey, man, I'm down on my luck. Hey, I just, my boyfriend used to beat me up, and I'm just trying to get my kids out of this place. And you go, oh, that's so sad. That story is so sad. I liked it the first time you told it to me 4 years ago. That was my favorite time I heard that story.
I'm just trying to get a bus. I just got to get a bus pass, man. When I get back, I got a job waiting for me.
There's a bus right there. Here, I'll pay for I'll put you on the bus. Let's see. Do you really want to get on this bus? So you learned about like, I mean, I felt, you feel bad, of course, because especially if you're coming out of privilege and you're in this situation, and then you're faced with the reality that not everybody has the same life that you have, right? And there's this level of guilt that I think happens, especially your freshman year. But boy, you get hardened up after a little while of hearing the same old stories and saying, well, I would have given you money, but you're the same guy who yelled at some girls that I know like 45 minutes ago. I just heard that Hammerhead down at Del Taco is screaming at these girls. It's like, yeah, I know that dude. That's the dude who every time the wind blows, he goes and picks up the payphone and starts screaming at it. So like we're surrounded by dangerous people who are, literally right out of the insane asylum down here mulling around. So it's
the 90s. This is the 90s.
90 to 94.
So is this right because I know Reagan closed like most of the insane asylums, and this is why a lot of people think this is why we have such a huge homeless problem now. One of the reasons why.
Yeah.
Was that right about that time when they were letting everybody out? Because they used to have kids. They used to have insane asylums where people would live there. There wasn't as many homeless people. Now they're just out on the street.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. He closed them down. And this was, this was sort of the aftermath of that. And I think that policy was still in place. This was the George H.W. Bush era. My freshman year at USC was when the first Iraq war happened, that January of 91, where they went in and, the Kuwait, the babies in the incubator story and all that. So that was, I remember the talk on campus was like, oh shit, if they institute a draft, like we're like in that age range, we could get packed up and sent off to Iraq to fight these guys. And of course I didn't know what I didn't know at that point. You don't know about wars and foreign policy and how it all works until much later, if ever. But
let's get to that. So you go, do you go work in LA and then you stay in LA? What do you do? What happens?
I stayed in LA. We all moved to the South Bay. We all moved to Manhattan Beach, Hermosa Beach, and lived down there for years. And I bartended.
Beautiful.
And every time
spot.
It's a great spot, man.
God, it's like magical.
Yeah. And there's a bar down there called Chillers. Well, there used to be. And it was like frozen Slurpees, alcoholic Slurpees. And it was right down at the Redondo Pier. And I bartended there from 95 to 2002, which was, and the whole time I did, it's like a Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday day job. So you've got plenty of time during the week to do other stuff. I worked in commercial real estate. I did all kinds of things. But I kept this really fun job.
Making bank too. You're making bank, right?
Making cash and being single. And I was a single bartender who didn't drink. And so I remembered everything. I knew what was going, I was paying attention, and you learn a lot about people by bartending. You see things. I saw things there that I never thought I would see. amazing things and also like fights. I've never been in so many fights. I'm not like I'm not like a let's go settle this after school in the parking lot sort of guy. I don't think I ever had any of those experiences, but I'll be damned if bartending. I mean, at least a dozen fistfights in the bar against customers, people, like you name it, people coming in just to start trouble, So you got to learn how to fight if you want to bartend there, which I didn't know was part of the job description. We learned on, and you gotta have some solid convictions. You're around a lot of drugs, a lot of alcohol. Obviously, you're around a lot of alcohol. So, like, how are you going to navigate that? So, I learned a lot about self-control and saying no, and how you can do that, and how you can, met a lot of fascinating people. We have, too many stories from that era that we all just kind. It's funny. My friend was at a concert in San Diego on Friday night, and he FaceTimed me, and he was with. He ran into two guys that I knew. One of them used to be my manager from back in the day. So I was like, oh my God, that guy knows all the stories too, of this. And we were talking for a little bit. I said, how lucky are we that we weren't doing that bartending era in the age of cell phones? Because that came after the fact. We didn't have any of that. And so, so much of what I look at the world now, and everything is recorded and everything is forever, and social media is a thing. And we just were raw dogging life without cell phones and cameras and everything. I was kind of the cameraman of the crew, and I would have a disposable camera with me on trips and things like that. So I do have some good photos of the insanity, but most people don't. And it's not on social media like it would have been back then. I think that changes your behavior too. And
you can't get away with anything anymore. You can't get away with anything anymore.
No, you cannot. And yeah,
I've told people this. I used to be, when I was a kid, my thing was, I used to rob people. I'm not proud of this, but I used to rob people when they were home. That's the way you want to get some quick stuff off people when they're home.
Mm-hmm.
It's like somebody's mowing the grass, just fucking buzzing the house. Like, hey, they never expect it. You can go there upstairs in the living room, you bust in the bottom. The door's always open. Go grab a TV, boom. But you can't get away with that now. I mean, I guess in a way you can sneak around the neighborhood, but everybody's got cameras. There's cameras everywhere. I'm not saying that's maybe one of the benefits of cameras being everywhere, but
right.
You can't, like you said, you can't get away with anything anymore. It's terrible.
No,
people think it's a good thing. It's not a good thing. It's not a good thing. When you measure the positives and the negatives, it's so much worse for human beings to be everything to be recorded. In my
opinion.
I
mean, how much of our, just the fact that that it might be recorded causes you to change your behavior because you don't want to do something. Now, if you're up to no good and there's a camera there and you don't want it, you're prevented from stealing the TV because there's a camera there, a case can be made that that's a good thing. But the sort of self-censorship that happens now that everything is recorded, be that with an actual camera or archived forever on social media, it's the things that you don't say that you would have said, and how you measure that self-censorship is a incredibly diabolical component of this as well, because there are things that you might have rightly wanted to say to somebody, but because that the internet is forever and that your employer might check it out, or a future employer might see it, or your girlfriend might find out about it, or whatever it is, you then change the way you behave simply because you're being watched. And that is, I think, already a victory for the state apparatus, because they know that as long as those cameras are out there, that that you're being watched.
They're the watchers. And we already have the Orwellian social credit system. People think, well, we're gonna have the social credit system. It's already basically here.
Yeah. I mean, if your credit system is, I went to an Eagles game and I called some lady the C word, like this guy did in the playoffs last week. And then social media made, everyone videotaped it. And then they found out who his employer was, and he was fired by the end of the day, the following the following day, your actions have repercussions and you should act accordingly. Now that is a double-edged sword, of course, because if as the state would tell you, if you're doing nothing wrong, you have nothing to worry about. But I disagree with that. And if you're on camera doing anything, who's to say they can't retroactively go back and build a case against you in the past for some of the things that you've said or done?
It's a control system for your mistakes. It's a control system. Your mistakes are used as a control system.
Yeah.
So you go off, you're in LA, you're in Redondo Pier, which is an amazing place. It's
yep.
So then you what happens then? You move off on the property, right?
Well, then I ran into a buddy of mine from boarding school at a bar one night, and I said, "What are you doing?" And he and I had played baseball together and football together, and he was 2 years older than me, but good guy. And I know he's an actor. I said, "What are you doing? You're acting?" He's like, "Well, I am, but I also have started this company. It's just me doing media training for professional athletes." And I said, "Well, who do you have?" And he says, "Well, Pete Sampras is my first client." I go, "How'd you get him?" And he says, "Well, Pete's girlfriend and I are good friends. And he said to me, I'm real comfortable on the court. Put me on a court in front of 1 million people. Doesn't bother me at all. But stick a microphone in front of my face and I just go to pieces. And I'm not good at that. Could you help me be better on camera?" So this is my partner, Steve, who says, "Yeah, I could do that." And so he started working with Pete. He tells me that, that's what he's doing. He says, what are you doing? I said, "Well, I'm working for Donnie Deutsch at Deutsch Advertising Agency in Mar Vista in LA, and he goes, "Do you like it?" I was like, "I'm the lowest paid person there. I'm the lowest person on the totem pole. And I don't particularly like it all that much." "Well, I'll tell you what," I said, "why don't you," I said, "I'll quit my job. You quit acting. And together, the two of us will take your idea, your media training idea, and we'll focus on it full time." And he's like, "Okay." And so
that's a big ask. Have a guy quit acting. That's a big ask.
Yeah.
That's like your dream thing.
Yeah. And he's a great actor. And he was a guy who was in, at the time he was in a Jack in the Box commercial that ran for 7 years. So we'd go out anywhere and people would be like, "You're the Jack in the Box guy." And he'd be like, yes.
He's also getting checks. That's a national spot, Jack in the Box.
Yeah.
So he's getting checks.
Oh yeah. For 7 years, he's getting checks. So,
nice.
So it's a mixed bag because on the one hand, having a check for 1 day of work lasts for 7 years is fantastic. The downside is you're a real legitimate actor who went to like Northwestern.
Now you're the Jack in the Box guy.
And now you're the Jack in the Box guy. While all of your friends are like huge celebrities now. Like all his group of friends are like Matt Damon, Ben Affleck, like big guys. Sean Hayes from Will and Grace, everywhere, right? But I went into work. He said, "I'll do it if you do it." I said, "I'm not kidding. I'm going to go in and quit tomorrow." And he said, "Okay." I went in and I told my boss, "I'm out of here." And we left and started working on this media training company and turned it into the #1 sports media training company in the world. And it is
really. Who are your clients?
Alex Smith, Eli Manning, Cam Newton.
Come on, really?
Yao Ming, Kamara.
So you're worth millions at this point. You're worth
Carmelo
millions.
Anthony. No, we're not worth millions, but our clients are. I mean, we, met Carmelo right after he won national championship with Syracuse in 2003. He met with us, with his agents, and we showed his agents what we could do with him. It was a miracle. It was a great, in a boardroom, had this very powerful experience where we stood him up in front of all of us in this boardroom. There's maybe 8 of us. Stand up there, tell us about a subject in school. And he's like, he's all slouched over. He doesn't know where to hold his hands. And the story doesn't, his teacher doesn't like me, thinks I'm just an athlete, thinks I'm not trying or anything. And and then Steve points to me, he goes, "Throw me the ball." We had a basketball. I throw Carmelo the ball. He starts dribbling. He stands up straight. he starts really painting the picture of this interaction with his teachers, and he starts to elaborate, and he's more comfortable, and his posture changes. And then Steve, like after a minute, walks up, just takes the ball from him and goes like, keep going. And he keeps continuing this story. And I look out of the corner of my eye and I see the marketing agent look at the head agent, and they're looking at each other and they're both smiling. And they go, we've seen enough. What are you guys doing in like 2 hours? We have Jim Rome over the hill in 2 hours. And we're like, we'll go with you. He's like, all right, let's go. So that's how we got Mello. And that's how we got that agent, all of their people. And then we got IMG. My mom sold a house to the CEO of IMG. She called me one day and she goes, I think I sold a house to Tiger Woods' agent. I go, you didn't sell a house to Tiger Woods' agent. She goes, well, I sold a house to Bob Kane and he's the CEO of IMG. I said, no, you sold a house to Tiger Woods' agent's boss. And she's like, oh, well, I told him about the thing that you're doing with the sports. And I told him, like, there's a kind of incentive bundle package for this house that you're buying that you don't know about, but I'm going to offer it to you. And you're going to say, yes, thank you for this great incentive package. And then you're going to have my son's going to come out here and pitch you on his sports media training business. And you're going to say okay to that too. And he goes, fine. So I was like, oh my God, Mom, you hooked me up. What a great hookup. So I have this meeting with the CEO of IMG, just the two of us at his vacation house in La Quinta. And I sit down in the living room with him and I pitch him on it. And he goes, I love it. He goes, call these 4 people. Here's their phone numbers. Head of baseball, head of football, head of hockey, and IMG academies. And we call all of them up. IMG hockey happens to be in Santa Monica, right down the street from us. Perfect fit. We go out with those. We call those guys. Hey, Bob Kane told me to call you. Oh, yes, sir. Yeah, absolutely. We'll take a meeting with you. We go get a meeting. We get our first big clients there with IMG hockey. Start working with Sidney Crosby when he's 15.
Really?
That's how early. 2002. I watched him come to UCLA for the week-long camp. I watched him they pulled us aside. They said, hey, we want you to spend a little extra time with this one kid. He's the next Gretzky. And I go, oh, God damn. I go, please don't do this to this poor kid. Don't do that. He goes, no. I agree. I'm not the one saying he's the next Gretzky. Gretzky's saying he's the next Gretzky. I was like, oh my God, who is he? So his name's Sidney Crosby. Let's go watch him. So we went down to Marina Del Rey to this ice skating rink that they had, and we just watched it, and we're just like, oh my God, like he's way better than everybody. And then they pull him off the ice. Come here, come talk to these guys real quick. So we did like a fake interview with him. I'm looking at my partner. I'm like, he's 15, but you'd think he was 30. You know, he's so nice and so smart, and you know, he's Canadian too. I think that helps. There's real better, well-built Canadian guys. And so that's what I did for a few years. It was, I opened a division in at the IMG academies, and we got a ton of pro athletes coming from there. We're the rookie symposium for the NBA now. We're the rookie symposium for the NFL. I mean, all that stuff. I don't run the company anymore. That's my partner's been doing that for the last 20 years, but I'm a minority owner in it. And it's just it's just one of those things that we were so early. I'm sitting in New York at the NBA's office pitching them in their boardroom. And I get done with this, what I thought was a pretty good presentation of why they need to have media training for their guys so that, they don't put their foot in their mouth and say something stupid. And the head of marketing, the head of marketing goes, I don't get it. And I remember saying to him, you'll get it one of these days. And they did not hire us at the time. They hired us a couple years later once they got it. And now any NBA rookie over the last 15 years has gone through our program.
Wait, so you're still involved with this company?
I'm still I'm a silent owner. No, I'm not involved with it. I think that they probably would be mortified of my political leanings and whatnot. So I keep it as separate as I can. But yeah, I mean, I was number 2 there.
You had an office in Santa Monica?
Yeah.
Wow. You guys.
But I opened the IMG academies, which used to be the Nick Bollettieri tennis academy in Bradenton, Florida. Now it's like this. It's a huge facility. It's like 60 Minutes did a whole story on it one time called like the Dream Factory, and there's golf and tennis and football and basketball. And I remember the head of IMG Academies. I was walking by his office one day. He goes, "Hey, come in here." And he goes, "Have you been over to the basketball place, the basketball court today?" I was like, "No, why?" He goes, "We have about $200 million worth of basketball players over there. You should go check it out." I was like, "Okay." So I went in there. It was like basically like half the Pistons team, a couple guys from the Lakers, Stanley Roberts was there, like all these, I was just watching them play like pickup basketball. It's them and the stands. It's just me. It's just me.
Why did you step away?
I stepped away because I got an opportunity in Vegas. That's when I wound up pivoting and going to Las Vegas and getting into real estate, because I loved working with the athletes, but we were starting to pivot into more of like corporate clients. And also we were doing a lot of work with the younger kids at the academy, and they weren't pro athletes. They were rich kids at boarding school who were like sold a dream that they're going to go to school from like 9 a.m. to noon. And then the rest of the afternoon is going to be golf for them forever. And they're going to be a pro golfer at the end of this. And that's sort of why 60 Minutes did the Dream Factory. The truth is 1% of the kids were going to go on to be pros. And 99% were just there living out their parents' fantasy that they're going to send their kid to the same tennis camp that Serena Williams and Anna Kournikova and Maria Sharapova came out. We were watching Maria Sharapova play when she was 15. When we were there, she was there. Michelle Wie was 13. She was there playing golf. I mean, Serena was there. Everyone, she was already a pro at that point, but like anybody in the tennis world, you stay on that campus long enough, they'll rotate in. You'll see them. They'll be there. And so once it became less about the sports and more about like teaching acting theater classes to rich kids, I wasn't really interested in that as much. And I lost the interest. And then I got offered a job in Vegas to get into real estate. And that's when I started. And I had been in real estate in the South Bay for a little while, but I didn't have a very good experience with it. It was commercial real estate. Didn't really love it. Then I got in Vegas. I got into new home sales in 2003, right when things were getting kind of
spicy,
yeah,
bubbly.
Spicy. I remember asking the boss, who hired me there, who I had known from, he was my mom's old boss from years earlier, so I'd known him. I remember asking him, with this job that you're offering me, will I make $100,000? He says, if you only make $100,000 this year, I'll have to fire you. And I was like, oh shit. And so that offer came, and then during the course of the conversation, he said, I wish I could hire you. He goes, God, if you just graduated from college like recently, I could start you immediately, because we have a spot that's reserved specifically for a recent college graduate. But he goes, well, how long have you been out? I'm like, I've been out for like 8 years. He's like, yeah, it's not going to work. And I said, but my girlfriend, she just graduated from college. He goes, do you think she'd want to have a job in new home sales? I was like, yeah, probably. Yeah, I'll ask her. I went and asked her. She came in. She was making $400,000 a year after that.
So you move with your girlfriend to Vegas. You're in Vegas. She's doing property. You get into property.
We're killing it. In my section, I'm the number one salesperson. First quarter in, never sold homes before, just destroying everybody there. Girlfriend gets sent to a different section, but also in Vegas. She's killing everybody there. So we're like, this is easy. But it's also 2004 in Las Vegas.
Is this girlfriend your wife now?
This is not my wife now. No.
Okay.
But she proved that if you talk to these people and you're nice and you're organized and you follow up and you really kind of do the work, you can make a living doing that. So that was when I finally felt like I was in a spot where I'm going to make some money. And at that point, I I was motivated by money because I hadn't had it at all in my life, really. And I watched everybody else who did have it, especially when you go through USC and also my boarding school too. I was on scholarship for my boarding school. So it wasn't like, I was surrounded by a lot of wealth, but I was not wealthy. And
I'm
so
just surprised you didn't make a killing at that video training business, though. You weren't making a killing there?
No, but because we were just getting up and running. And I think had we, I mean, I don't know what it's worth now. If it ever sells, I think I'd be probably in pretty good shape. But no, we weren't. It was a startup, and it was one of those things. It was like we were paying ourselves nothing, essentially, we were like very little, and so it was the first time that I'd ever had a job where I was uncapped as well. When you're like in an all, this is not a salary job in new home sales. It's like you sit there and maybe you sell a house today and maybe you don't. And you hope that it all evens out in the end. But you're uncapped in terms of your earnings. So in that regard, how hard do you want to work and how bad do you want it? And so I pushed. So that began the process of just really kind of working my ass off in Las Vegas. And in 2007, spring of 2007, I get I'm getting ready to go on a trip. My buddy comes over to me and he says, "Take this book and read this on your trip. I think you'll like it. Confessions of an Economic Hitman by John Perkins." And I am telling you, that book changed my life. I knew this is 2000. This is 2007. Housing market is still booming. Hasn't turned yet. I knew I wasn't totally red pilled, but I knew 9/11 was nonsense, and I knew the wars were not what we were told. But I didn't understand the money side of things, and so I'm reading this about how governments loaning countries money, loaning Ecuador money by the IMF and World Bank in order to build this hydroelectric power plant and all the promises that come along with it. It's going to generate electricity. Your kids will learn to read because they'll have light bulbs at night and all the prosperity that comes with it. And yeah, it's going to cost $2 billion, but look at all the revenue it'll generate. You could pay it off and it'll work out. Here's how it pays itself off in 15 years or whatever. And so they sign on to these deals. And John Perkins, the author, knows this because he was one of the hitmen that was doing this before he sort of had his epiphany and it pivoted and became an advocate, to get people to not get into business with the World Bank. So, but at the time, he would sign these countries on to these massive debts. And then what would happen is that the numbers didn't go the way that they said they were going to go. You fall behind on your payments and it's not generating sort of revenue you thought it was going to, or that you were told or promised that it would. And you fall behind on your payments to the IMF and the World Bank. And like any good loan shark, they show up at your house, knock on the door with a baseball bat, and they go, you owe us a lot of money, but we can work something out. Like, why don't you, Ecuador, vote our way in a UN resolution? Or why don't you privatize your fishing industry or privatize your lumber industry and let our buddies at Goldman Sachs buy it? Or why don't you allow a US military base to go here? Some bullshit deal that the country doesn't want to do, but is being strong-armed into it because they've fallen behind in their payments to the wrong people. Now,
to the World Bank, right?
Yeah. And so I'm reading this and I'm going, oh my God, wait a second. We, the home builder I'm working for and the mortgage division of the home builder, we are giving a guy, it was still fax back then. There's 2-page financial information document. If someone wants to buy a house from me, fill this 2 pages out. I'll fax it over to our mortgage guy and I'll have an answer pretty soon. And I remember one guy, he picked oranges. Seriously, picked oranges. That was his job. He made about $10 an hour. He was applying to buy a house that was $405,000, and we approved him for it. And I remember thinking, this guy's going to lose his house. This poor bastard has maybe he'll stay in it for the first year or 2, but the way we got him qualified is on this wonky adjustable mortgage, and it's fine now, but it's going to adjust up in year 3. And I don't know if he knows it. I mean, I'm sure he's being told this, but I don't know if he knows what the ramifications or what that payment looks like. And this is what happened. And so like I had this epiphany that after reading Perkins' book, that like what we're doing is just the same thing that the World Bank is doing, but on a much smaller scale. And that when they fall behind and they're, loaning out fake money that's just printed into existence on a computer and then taking back a tangible asset when they fall behind, like a house. And about the time it clicked for me was when I started to watch these mortgage programs go away. And I knew the way I knew that the housing market was turning was that, as an example, with the orange guy, let's say he had his mortgage with like, we've got him approved. He's with Indy Mac. And then I get a phone call 3 days later and they go, Indy Mac just went under. So we don't have those loan programs, but I've got this other program. It's similar. It's pretty good. I've already talked to the buyer about it. I told him the situation. We're going to roll him into that loan program. I'm like, okay, well, I mean, as long as he's good with it and you guys are good with it and he qualifies, fine. Friday comes along. I get a call. That mortgage company is out of business now too. Like, Jesus, like that program's gone away. So all of a sudden the program selection went from like 30 down to like 2. And you could sort of feel that things were turning, but I was not prepared for how quick things happen, how fast it happened. And if you've ever read the book or watched the movie, The Big Short, that was like a documentary to me. When they're even down to the part where like they're kind of like in the strip club in Miami and the girl's like, I'll do your mortgage for you. I had that exact same situation happen in Vegas. An old man came into my sales office with his real estate agent who looked like a stripper, and turned out if she goes to the bathroom, I say, how do you know your agent? He goes, I met her last night at Cheetah's. I was like, and she comes back from the bathroom and we're talking about something. And I go, so cash, is this a cash purchase? Or you want a mortgage? She goes, I'll be doing his loan for him. I was like, of course you will. Of course you will. So I've really had the same situation that they had in The Big Short. But you know what was embarrassing about it was that even though I was right in the middle, I couldn't see it. I just couldn't see it. I couldn't see the game because I was in the middle of it. And I lost, and I had a house that I thought was a great house, but then we bought a bigger house and kept the first house and make it a rental house. And we're going to move on up like the Jeffersons, we're getting the big house in the corner. And in the end, I lost both of the houses. And I was a pretty reasonable, frugal guy. It just became one of those situations where like things in my life changed. The value of the house got cut in half in a year. It goes up 40. In 2004, the prices of homes in Vegas went up 43% in 1 year. Well, when they go up that fast, they'll come down that fast too. And that's what happened. And they caught a lot of people in a bad spot. And I felt bad for all the people who I'd sold houses to, but part of me was like, hey, I didn't even know. Like, this isn't some grand conspiracy that I'm behind. Like, that I'm like, I got you to buy this house and now I made a bunch of money and you didn't. It's like, no, I got whacked in this thing too. And I just, after that, I just didn't want to be the sucker playing 3-card Monte ever again. And I just needed to understand how it worked and how this money worked and the system worked. And I didn't know about the Federal Reserve and I didn't understand really. I only knew the bare minimum that I needed to do my job. And I wasn't selling mortgages. That was the mortgage division, but I had to know enough about it to tell the customer to get them ready for dealing with the guy who was going to be handling the mortgage. And so I knew a little bit, but it was amazing to me that you could be in this industry and right in the middle of all of it and legitimately not understand, not see the scam and not see the impending collapse of it. Because had I known what was coming, obviously I would have sold both the houses and gone into a rental and waited a couple years. I know one person who did that. One person said, this feels very frothy. I'm selling everything and I'm going to rent for a while. And everyone went, you're crazy. And he was the one smart guy out of everybody I knew. But for the rest of us, we just had to feel the pain. And in some respects, I'm glad I did, because it changed my life and it sent me off into this new orbit that was more about like, well, let's learn what I don't know about money. And then that leads you to the World Bank and IMF and the John Perkins stuff. And you're like, yeah, this is what John was talking about. And flash forward now, I'm now friends with John Perkins, which is the craziest part of it all over the years. Having him on my podcast a couple different times and explaining to him that like you specifically, you and David Icke both put me on a totally different path, and to have personal relationships with both of them now has been pretty special to me, because if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing. And I'm really glad I'm doing this and not real estate, because I was not very fulfilled, and I didn't feel like I was, I felt like, oh, you can make money doing this, but then what are you going to do? It just changed my life once I realized that I wasn't interested in that way of living anymore.
So when did you start Macroaggressions? Was that the first thing you did? Like, when did you start this road you're on now? And what do you think in your life? Because to do what you're doing, you have to have integrity and you have to have courage. You have to appreciate truth. And what do you think in your life gave you that quality that made you, this is a maverick or a renegade, if you will?
Probably my mom. My mom was a flight attendant with Pan Am in the 60s on the international legs. So she'd been around the world 100 times, I remember asking her, what's the most beautiful city you've ever seen, you've ever been to? And she said, oh, that's easy, Beirut. But before the Israelis bombed the shit out of it, of course. But, and I said, hey, you've been to Beirut. How many times have you been to Beirut? She goes, 100? 80? I don't know. I can't tell you. I was there once a week for years, like I think coming from a family that travels a lot helped me, because I think you see the world differently. My mom had always said that she knew she worked, when I was a kid growing up, she worked at the school where I went to school in order so that I could get free tuition there. And she knew all the teachers. And it's, it's a small little circle, and you go from kindergarten through 8th grade, and you just kind of move from one teacher, just move along. And she knew that from knowing the teachers, that the teachers said that if they ever needed to get like a straight answer on something, they could ask me. They knew I would be honest with them about it. And so, I don't know, I guess I just was sort of had that instilled in me by my parents, my mom in particular. And what started Macroaggressions and the books and all that was a conversation that I had with my mom in 2015, where I was explaining to her some new conspiracy I'd discovered, hey, listen to this, what do explaining this whole story to her. And she goes, this is amazing. This is really interesting. You have all of these topics that you're interested in, and you it's just really interesting stuff. And she goes, what are you going to do about it? What are you going to do with it or about it? And I didn't have an answer, because I didn't know that I had a role in doing anything about it. It had always just been interesting topics that I thought were fascinating, that I wanted to know more about, but I didn't have a particular idea that I was going to get involved in it. And I thought, well, God, if I do something, could I direct I don't really know how to do all that. Maybe I could probably write a book. Maybe I could write a book. I don't know. We'll see. And that kind of went in my head. And, about a year after that, we left California because of the SB 277 vaccine mandate. And because we had a preschooler who was just getting ready to start in the California school system after being in Vegas, and then I moved back to California.
This is 2020, you're saying?
This is 2015.
Oh, wow. Okay.
This is 2015. And in 2015, we made the decision to move to the Denver area. My wife's family's from there. And so that we're not going to have our kid going to school in California, we'll have it in Denver. And then when I did that, I now had no contacts. I didn't have my Vegas contacts for real estate. I didn't have my California contacts. I was just basically there by myself. What am I going to do? I remember that conversation I had with my mom, and I thought, well, maybe I could write a book. And so I started quietly, didn't tell anybody. I started writing The Octopus of Global Control, and that was 2016. That about halfway through writing the book, my reason for keeping it secret from everybody was I didn't know if I was going to finish it. I didn't want to be on the hook and be like, hey man, like tell all my friends I'm writing a book and then have them go, how's that book coming, man? I'm going to go, oh, I never finished it, which is something that I think a lot of people do. So I didn't want to be on the hook for anything. So I just didn't tell anybody anything. And I quietly started writing this book. About halfway through, I realized that I was going to finish the book. There was no problem with that. But then my reason for keeping it secret was I don't want somebody to tell me to stop. I don't want my wife to go, what is this? What are you going to do? You're going to sell books. You're going to be an author now and like go, and so like the answer is yeah. and then what? Who are you going to sell them to? Well, I don't know. I'll promote it. And so anyway, The Octopus came out in 2017 and I did start promoting it and I didn't know, I figured I would reach out to all the podcasts that I had been on, that I had been listening to and see if I could get on there and talk to them about my book. And I started reaching out and doing that. The third show I got on was Coast to Coast. I got on Coast to Coast, which is like a internationally syndicated radio show with like anywhere from like 3 million people listening a week. And on the night I was on, there might have been a couple 100,000 people listening and did 3 hours there. And then went and looked at the book sales after that. And there was a huge spike. And I went, okay, all right, now we're getting somewhere. So I got a little lucky. I mean, I sort of made my own luck, but I got a little lucky with the promotion early on. Got on Tinfoil Hat, became friends with Sam Tripoli back in 2018. As his show grew, he's had me on, I think I've been on there 7 or 8 times. And I just started hustling. Really, that's about the bottom line. I started going on all these shows to try and promote it because look, it's self-published. There was no chance a publisher would touch this book. I already knew that when I was writing it. It never even crossed my mind to go approach. I did talk to Chris Milligan about publishing it through Trine Day, but he was like, the math didn't math on that one. But everything else, I just decided I'm going to be my own marketing department, my own PR guy. I'm going to have to do that. And so in going on all these shows, somewhere along the line, I went on The Confessionals, which is Tony Merkel. And Tony was, when we got done recording, he's like, you need to have your own podcast. And I was like, well, that's nice of you to say, but I get kind of stuck with the technical side of things. I get right up, sounds like a great idea until I have to engineer it. And he said, I do all that. That's what I do for my show. I could engineer and do all the back end stuff that you need and give you the freedom and flexibility to focus on the content and your delivery and how you do it. But if you want to, if you want to do this, then you have to do it the right way and you have to be consistent. You have to deliver on a schedule and you have to do this and that. And, he taught me some really good habits early on. So I've been fortunate that I've been, I found people who are really, Tony Merkel is a fantastic guy. And because he got a hold of me early and got me doing things the right way, Macroaggressions turned into like a huge hit. And that launched in 2020. So the book came first. The podcast came as a result of promoting the books on other people's podcasts and somebody saying, I think you have the talent to do this as well as writing books. And so that these were happening in tandem with one another. Same time this is going on, I'm talking to Jeff Berwick about the controlled demolition of the American Empire. He reached out and said, like, we should write this. I have an idea. And I said, well, I have an idea too. And I sent him, because he said, oh, it's all coming down. It's all coming down. I was like, what do you mean? He's like, like a house of cards. I was like, oh, you mean like the banking system? He's like, yeah, yeah. But when he said it's all coming down, in my mind, I just thought like a building, like. And so he said, well, I have some notes for a book I was thinking of writing. He sent it over to me. And I said, I like your notes. But I said, but that one thing you said right when we were getting off, you said it's all coming down. It made me think of like a building. And, what if we described the way you would take down an actual building and sort of made that the metaphor for this, identifying the support columns, pre-weakening the building, rigging the detonators, sounding the alarm, pushing down the plunger, clearing the debris, all that stuff. And I sort of made this big, long pitch to him, this massive email like this. And I remember his response was one sentence, totally Berwick. I like your idea better. That's what he said back to me. So that started the book that we wrote, that we put out in 2020. And so all this stuff has been like one kind of synchronistic thing after another. If I had kind of joke about how if I had, you're supposed to write a business plan when you're going to start this, a new endeavor, like a business. And had I written a business plan, it would have been totally obsolete. It could never have accounted for luck, synchronicities, putting yourself in the right place, meeting somebody who introduces you to somebody else who you would have never. And that's kind of how things had unfolded, which I think was appropriate because, I'm thinking about how you can drive from California to New York at night with just your headlights on, right? And only being able to see 100 yards in front of you, and then the next 100 yards, and then the next 100 yards. And you can do that the entire way. And that was kind of how this was unfolding. Like, I don't know how I'm going to get from A to Z. I'm just going to go from A to B. And once I get to B, I'll figure out how to go from B to C. But I trust that it will unfold along this journey, that something will happen. And one of the things I've gotten better about is recognizing when these synchronicities enter your life and taking advantage of them when they do. And that's why the activist post thing was a no-brainer to me, because it was an email out of the blue from a news company that I had loved for years and years, asking me if I wanted to take over. And I'm thinking, man, I don't know how much ayahuasca I've done, or, over the years, like you do it and you learn some lessons. Like when the universe puts you in a position for something magical to happen, you have a role in this. You have to then seize upon the opportunity and go for it and just see how it plays out. And that was my feeling when the activist post guys reached out to me. I was like, this is just the universe opening up another door, and it's up to me whether or not I'm going to step through it or not. And so, in the summer of 2024, my answer is yes. If this had been in the summer of 2004, I wouldn't have known that I'm supposed to keep my eyes open for these things coming out of the blue. And so it had to be like the right time, and I had to be properly humbled through my experiences with real estate, and sickened by the system, and angry about money, and embarrassed about not recognizing things sooner. And all that stuff had to happen to put me in a position where this was going to unfold the way it has. And so I'm really grateful for all the failures that I had along the way. And I've had plenty of them, but they sort of put me in a position to recognize when something magical comes your way, like jump on it. If you don't jump on it, that's your problem.
When you win, you celebrate. When you lose, you learn, if you have wisdom.
Yeah.
So you're talking about synchronicity and the universe. You're talking about God, no?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm not a Heavenly Father in the clouds who pulls the strings on our life type of person, but I am smart enough to know that I don't know it all. I've had experiences that make you want to shake your fist at the sky. God, how dare you? All that stuff. I don't know. I don't know how it all works. I just know that I've been better about recognizing opportunities that come my way. Because I had been bad about it in the past. I think I dismissed some things that I should have maybe been paying attention to. I looked away when there were some signs that I should have been recognizing, and I think that comes from experience, from doing that long enough. But yeah, you can call it God, I suppose. It felt like the pieces were being put in place as they needed to be, and the more I took my hands off the steering wheel, in the sense that I don't need to control everything. I just, put myself in a position for good things to happen, but then be flexible enough to allow those things to unfold, because they may be different than the way you were expecting it. They may not look the way you were hoping they would look. And you're like, wow, you said you were going to send me a sign, like you were going to. As a prime example, in Mexico had a profound experience with shaman Bearheart. And after the end of that, I had this deep feeling that for whatever reason, I was going to have a much bigger, a stronger voice in whatever I was doing. Now, at the time that this was happening, I was in Mexico and I was talking to people about turning my octopus book into an 8-part documentary series. I had the trailer sort of cut and I was showing people this. And so I'm thinking it's got to be the documentary series, right? It's got to be that. If I'm going to have a much bigger voice going forward, it's going to be that. I'm really glad that I had the experience to say that could be it, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be it, because it wasn't until a couple months later that I got the email from Activist Post guys. And I was like, oh shit, I think that actually is, if I'm being honest, this is the much larger voice that the universe, whatever in that experience, was preparing me for. And I could have been dismissive. In fact, I was dismissive. The email was, would you be interested in being the new owner? And my response is, sounds great, but no, because I can't really afford it. And then I stopped and thought about it for the next 2 days. And I reached back out to him and I said, I'll find a way to make it work. But the answer is yes. And I thought, God, you can't go have these psychedelic experiences and be on a quest for whatever knowledge or something, a sign, and then get a sign like this and discount it and go, it's probably nothing. No, it's probably what you were looking for. I mean, it's here now. Now the ball's in my court. The universe conspired to put this opportunity in front of me. Am I going to take it or am I going to pass on it? And at first I tried to pass on it until I thought about it a little bit harder and then realized, no, this is what I need to be doing. So I wouldn't have made that decision if it had been 15 years earlier. I wouldn't have known to keep my eyes open.
So
I wouldn't have known.
Bearheart was a ayahuasca thing?
Shaman Bearheart, no, it was Bufo, which is Sonoran toad venom, which is like smokable DMT. And it's a very...
This is at Acapulco?
Yeah. Yeah. It's off campus at Bambuda, at their holistic center that's down the street. Beautiful scenario. I met Bearheart the year before. Good dude, like a real important figure, interesting guy, but like a real important guy. And I had some pretty deep conversations with him, and I was ready for this. And he helped sort of put me on that path. And afterwards we had a conversation about what I saw and what I felt and how I feel about it going forward. And
smoking Bufo with Bearheart.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's great. And so just as a side note, you're basically the MC of Acapulco this year.
Yeah.
I'm going to be there. And I've already announced this in the email. I don't know if you got it, but Charlie is in our new film Barnum World. He's officially he's playing the part of the interviewer, sort of the narrator interviewer, which we've recorded about 40% of so far. I guess I've already put it in the film, so we're ready to go.
Oh, great.
Yeah,
it's gonna be fun. I mean,
So
it's already fun. Yes, I did get the email. I sent it to everybody.
okay, cool. And
Yeah,
then so yeah, you're going to be down there this year. So anybody that can make it, it's a big trip, but if you can, I'll tell you this: I give people advice if you're on the west side of the country, if you're in America, which is what I do, is I go to Tijuana. I go to San Diego. They have a thing called a CX, I think it's CBX, cross border crossing or something. Every Uber driver knows the jig, and you can go from the San Diego airport, you can drive there, but you go across the border through the CBX place. It's super easy. Excuse me, sorry, the Illuminati, they got me. Sorry. And then you're in Tijuana and you fly to Acapulco from Tijuana, Acapulco, direct flight, 3.5 hours. You don't have to deal with the Mexican City airport, which is a nightmare.
Yeah.
Mexico City airport.
I slept in a pod.
I slept on the floor.
Oh,
it was freezing because they leave the doors open. They don't want people sleeping there. So they make it cold at night on purpose.
Yeah.
It was horrible. Oh, it was a nightmare. That airport is a nightmare. And then the last time we went, we had to get a hotel because they don't fly Aeromexico if you can avoid it. That's just all I'm going to say on that. But anyways, if you're going to be, if you want to go, we'll be down there. Come see
You're
us.
the second person that's told me about the Tijuana trip.
Oh, is that right? That's the way to go. And it's cheap, super cheap. By the way, it's way cheaper. Otherwise, you got to pay way more money. You fly to Houston, then Mexico City. It's a nightmare. Then you got to get in this puddle jumper, which I don't like flying to begin with. Those puddle jumpers. I went, and last time me and Doug went, it was this little crappy puddle jumper, Aeromexico, chip paint. Like the Aeromexico logo was chipped off. I'm like, I'm terrified. This is going to be horrible. It's a propeller plane. Like, get me off this death trap right now.
The scariest one I've done is going into Belize, not in Belize City, but down in south of Belize City, where I'm on one of those little, where you can reach forward and tap the pilot on the shoulder if you want to.
Mm-hmm.
And we're landing. I'm going, I don't see an airport around here. And we landed. The runway is just grass. This is like landing on a football field. I was like, okay, well, I guess we're here. I'm glad I didn't see that. I'm glad we just landed on it. And then I found out afterwards when I got out.
No, you didn't know your fate.
We're just landing on a soccer field. Is that what we're doing now? Okay, I guess this is the airport. So
it's funny you say that. I when I was younger, I drove with my buddy from Pittsburgh to Belize. Believe it or not.
Oh, really?
Through Guatemala, and we went to Guatemala later. But I lived in Belize City for like a month. That place is insane. Yeah, that's an insane asylum.
I bought. So you want to talk about the height of the real estate insanity? 2007. I went and bought an island down there. A 2.5 acre island in Belize.
You still own it?
I sold it. Just a couple of years ago. But yeah, I had it for like 16 years.
What? Why'd you sell it? Just never go?
The plan was I was going to develop it. That's what I really wanted to do. It was a perfect island. It was like perfectly round, bright blue. I mean, it was great. I just couldn't do what I wanted to do with it. And right about the time I bought it, things changed in my life, lost the houses, kept the island, but lost the houses. And I went, oh, well, things have changed. I'll do that later. And then later never came and I wound up selling it. But I kind of had this unusual relationship with Belize because of that.
Did you ever run into, what was his name? The guy that
John
killed?
McAfee?
Yeah. You ever see him down there? Because he lived in
he lived in
Ambergris Key.
Yeah, he was out there. I was more off of the coast of Placentia, which is down, which isn't really far. It's about halfway down the country on the coast. Great spot. I mean, great spot to live and great place to have an island. There are all kinds of little islands out there. There's hundreds of islands out there.
I didn't know that. I there's better places for me personally in Latin America than Belize. It's kind of sketchy. It's beautiful though, for sure. You can find spots, but it's a sketchy deal, you know. Like
which places do you like?
I'm really hot on, and it's kind of getting a little too hot now. It's a little overcooked right now, but I'm big on El Salvador. not just because of the Bitcoin. I went there. Me and Doug went there and drove all over the country. And that guy is like a 1 in 1,000 year kind of leader, where these scammy sort of democracies all over the world. He actually is trying to help his people, which is there's no incentive in the systems that we have to do that, and he's doing it just out of the fact that he has integrity, whatever you think of him. But I never all over Latin America, as you know, the people there are there's sketchy areas just like everywhere else, but not like here in America. But the people are so nice, so friendly.
They're so nice.
El Salvador is the next level. Like I've never met people. They're so kind. Sorry, again, it's the Illuminati. They're the kindest, and they're so family oriented, and like everywhere you go, you just hear laughter. Like we would just be like, there's that El Salvador laughter. You get up in the morning, you walk into town, just hear people laughing, and kids hold their moms and grandparents' hands and walk around. Everybody's hugging on each other all the time, and just the best people I've ever seen. I've been all over there. I mean, I like all of the places. I liked Costa Rica's a no-brainer. That's a great place. Guatemala is great. I went through I drove through Guatemala during the Civil War. It was literally like we were in the mountains, like boulders, like going like 10 miles an hour in the middle. We didn't even know. We're so dumb. We just drove there. Didn't even do any research or anything. Turned out there was a war going on. So we would be like in the mountain. There are these giant signs with a gorilla with a machine gun. And I didn't know any Spanish, not a word. I know yo. So we would go, we finally figured out, it was like, sometimes this road is controlled. Damn Illuminati. Sometimes this road is controlled by the guerrillas. So be careful. I'm like, oh my God.
Okay. Good to know.
They would kidnap people and put them in the army. We'd be driving and you'd see these camps where these poor kids got like kidnapped to fight in the army.
Oh man.
Anyways, I have tons of, I don't want to go off on my stupid trip stories. It was
Nicaragua,
great.
I've heard good, if
never been to Nicaragua, heard it's amazing. Honduras, same thing. What were you going to say?
Yeah. That's Mike Cobb from ECI Development. He's got a big presence at Anarchapulco. He and I have breakfast every year. Pick a day, have breakfast. I always want to know what he's working on. He's got projects all over Central America, Nicaragua, Belize, Costa Rica, I think Honduras.
I've been to Panama. It was nice. Panama's a little more policey.
Panama, they have places there. Yeah, I haven't been to Panama yet. How was it?
It's a little more policey. I went to this island that was like where they shot the Latin American Survivor. Apparently, it was not the island, this area. I don't remember the name of it, but there's a bunch of islands around, and it was like it was kind of like Belize. It was like the only black people in Panama. So it was kind of like they kind of like did their own thing. It was pretty awesome. But when you get into Panama, at least at the time I was there was a lot of police presence. I got a ticket for not wearing a seatbelt in Latin America, of all places. And it was just, the usual. I like it. The corruption there is so much more honest. Just pay the guy. The guy, you want to go to court? Are you there? You froze?
Yeah.
Oh, you froze for a second.
I'm here. Yeah, it froze for a second.
You know how it is, like there, like, we could write you a fine, you go to court, but you could just pay us now. And it's like, here you go, it's $20, and then they leave you alone. I appreciate that corruption much more than what we have here, this fake sort of law and order nonsense.
Yeah, just give it to me. Straightforward corruption is better. It's my favorite kind.
Yeah. So before we go, I wanted to ask you, what's going to happen in your opinion? Are we going into the panopticon? Are we going to be free? And is there any solutions? I mean, obviously there's not really a solution per se, but there are things we can do. What do you think is going to happen here? Where are we going?
I do worry about the digital side of things because I know where they'd like to take us. They'd like to take us to a place where everything is outsourced to AI decision making, where they can say, well, it's not us, it's the computer that's doing this, where your money is tied to it in a central bank digital currency. That to me is the hill to die on 100%, because if they can make, say what you want about the US dollar. I mean, we have our problems with it, but in its paper form, you can go out and pay for services and goods without any sort of tracking or accountability. In a future central bank digital currency world, which everything is tracked, they'll know what you're buying. Certain things will be off limits for you to be able to buy. they'll put quotas on it. Well, you're going to have a barbecue for 4th of July. You've gone to Costco. You're going to buy all these hot dogs and hamburgers. And like, you go to scan your credit card and it's like, you've exceeded your carbon allowance, like for the month. Like, sorry, we can't sell you this. So I fear the sort of constraints that they will put on the money, that it'll be tied to your behavior.
People don't understand the central bank digital currency. They think it's just like another debit card or digital money. They don't understand that it's programmable money. Maybe some of them do. I don't know. That it's programmable money, that they can control they can first of all track your purchasing habits. Yeah. They control that. You get 2 pounds of beef a month, or you can only, this much gas a month. And that's what the driverless cars are going to be all about. You're not allowed to go up there, dirty human. You can't go to the lake. You only get to go to the nature. You're 2 hours a month. They think I'm crazy. That is literally on the table.
Oh, no? Yeah, 100%. This is the cities that they envision are 15-minute cities. And that's great if you live in New York and you're like, well, I live in New York City and really I'm in a 15-minute city. Everything I need is within 15 minutes of me. I can get on a bike or a bus and it's all there. Isn't this great? Well, maybe, but what if you need to go 16 minutes outside of the city? What if you need to go somewhere else? What if you need to go to a wedding? What if you need to go on a business trip? What if you need to leave? Can you leave? And the answer is, well, maybe you can leave, but because for us to put walls up would be crazy. We can't put walls up. You'll be trying to climb over the walls. But what if the walls were invisible? What if the walls were set up so that, sure, you can go outside of your 15-minute, home, but your wallet on your cell phone is geo-fenced. It's tagged to where your home is. We know where your home is, and you're trying to go someplace that's like an hour away. Fine, you can go there if you want, but your money's not going to work. I hope you packed a lunch, because you can't spend your money doesn't spend outside of your agreed upon area. This is the future they could do. It's not to say that they necessarily will do it, but the money can be programmed to do all kinds of things. Only work on the company store. Anything that's attached to, say, the World Economic Forum, all their partners, which would be quite a few major brands, but none of the, Bob's the Lumber isn't going to be on that list.
No.
And so maybe it's that, you can only shop at certain places. Maybe you can only buy certain items. You can never buy a gun or bullets or gold or silver or Bitcoin or Monero or whatever. Let's just say that they made certain things that are just off limits. Maybe they set your balance of CBDCs that you've got in your account to expire. Maybe 25% of it expires in the next 90 days because they got a bad jobs report. The earnings after Christmas just came out and everything's down. So, get to spending. We need to stimulate the economy. We've got an election coming up. And so,
well, that's 100% part of the digital currency. I forgot to mention that. They're all going to be expirational. So no savings, no interest. You have to spend that money or it disappears.
You'll own nothing because you'll never be able to save for anything,
That's
as they say. So it'll be a constantly like rental society, rent a bike. And of course it'll be carrot and stick related too. You were a great citizen this month. You're because you kept your score above 80, then you get discounts on the bike you want to rent. You get discounts that these brands would love to have somebody with a good credit score like you come and buy their products. And so because of that, you're going to get discounted rate. Isn't this great? And so you're going to have real low status people competing on obedience. They're going to say, well, I can't compete in the real world. My social credit score, maybe, I don't know, but if you tell me to stand on one foot or go one direction down the grocery store aisle while wearing my mask, I'll do it the best than anyone's ever done it before. Look how I am. Look at how participatory I am in this social credit score. Make my score higher, because I'm doing all the things you ask me to do. So you're going to have a lot of people that are participating in this because finally it's something in which they can excel at, which is being obedient to the state.
That's right.
And by doing so, their scores will be through the roof. And if you want to take into account the Chinese social credit component of it, one of the things that they've implemented is that it's not just it's one thing to have your score be high, but if I'm a low score person because I have a problem with authority, if you're interacting with me, you with your high score and me with my low score, I am going to lower your score just because you're interacting with me, just because you're talking and dealing with me. So the social ostracism that will come as a result of this, it'll be your friends going, man, I would love to talk to you, but like, I can't have my score going down. Like you can't be sending me emails with dick jokes and all this stuff. Like I can't interact with you anymore. And so that is going to have a chilling effect on relationships and how people view each other. And Black Mirror did an episode about this with social media, and like if you have a smile, oh, you have a smile, oh, ding, 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 and it's coming. And that I worry about. I definitely worry about that. And I worry about it in part because most of the general public isn't worrying about it. And they'll never see it coming until it's
Are they
late.
though? I wonder. I hear this a lot. I don't hear everybody watches the news. I don't know where I'm at with that. I feel like there's a lot more people that understand what's going on than meet the eye. I'm more white pilled on that. Whether it matters or not, I don't know, but I feel like a lot more people are with it than we give them credit. That generally people give credit. I could be wrong. Yeah.
Yeah.
What are we looking like in 10 years? What's going on 10 years from now? Where are we at?
Well, here's one thing that I do believe. The people that are in positions of power are incompetent. And so I'm always, I always take a little bit of solace knowing that they may have a 10-step plan to tyranny, but if they can't get off of step 2, then who cares what the rest of the steps look like? And we saw this during COVID they were of the belief that they were just going to roll this out. Everyone was going to be terrified. They'd control the narrative without fail. They'd get everybody queued up to take a jab and multiple jabs. And that's just how it would be. We'd implement vaccine passports and all that stuff. Then we threw a big monkey wrench in that plan and it didn't get implemented. So I'm always a bit optimistic in the sense that they bring in incompetent people typically to run these, which is a good thing to know. The policies are incompatible with humanity, which matters. And a lot of people will just feel that they're not going to participate.
Because what you're talking about, not to cut you up, what you're talking about would make things, what we've been talking about with the technocracy, it could make things so miserable that people would rather be dead than live in it, which is how that kind of thing ends. But go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, for sure. And but I'm optimistic in the sense that I think that in order for them to unfurl this plan and to have it really take root, they're going to have to do things different than what they did with the COVID debacle. That's not scary enough. I think that humanity ultimately wins. And your story about how the Mexicans relate to their government is something that I think about all the time too with Jeff. I've had the same conversations with him. He's like, the government will come in and say, you guys have to do X, Y, and Z, all this stuff. And the people just look at them and they just go, we're not doing that.
Right.
And then the government drives off, the cops or whoever drive off. If enough of us, and it doesn't need to be 51%, by the way, but if enough
10,
of us
20
stand up to these plans, they fall apart. And they are their Agenda 2030 plan has to be pushed off. The more I keep reading, the more I keep seeing the number 2035. So I'm like, okay, well, it seems like they're making a calculation that they're not going to get there in time. I think we've thrown some monkey wrenches in their plans and we'll continue to do so. That's optimistic for me. I think that our default setting is to want to be free and to not want to be controlled by authoritarians. Unfortunately, a lot of people have sort of lost that, or it's been bred out of them, whether it's the fluoride or the television or whatnot. It's convinced them that freedom isn't free. And that and that maybe these are privileges, not actual inherent rights that you have, but we could look at them as privileges. But there's enough of us out there that are pushing back that I think will make them, if they're going to implement some sort of totalitarian panopticon, it'll be over our dead bodies, really. I mean, a lot of people are out there making it as difficult as they can, but I'm not trying to be dismissive of their plans for world domination. They've had them for a long, long time. And frankly, it's never been easier to control a lot of people, as Brzezinski said. But there's so many of us, and the idea that they're going to be able to just rule all of us with an iron fist. Technology makes that possible. I don't think it's going to happen, though, provided that we get honest about it. But if we roll over and take the central bank digital currency, we take the UBI that they give out, then you might find yourself trapped in it. So I think that the first step is for people to recognize that we have a problem, like any sort of issue that you have or addiction. Get honest about the situation. And the vast majority of humanity is not honest about it right now. That's why we're in this situation. But if you can get honest about where we're going, then you can make moves accordingly. And they have a long time, they have 10 years or so left by 2035 for us to get us all into this system that they're trying to create, and it requires our compliance. And so I think that I think they're going to have big problems with it. But that being said, I'm not cavalier about saying, oh, it'll never happen. Well, it'll never happen if we make sure that it doesn't happen. But if we sit back and just wait and let someone else do all the hard work, unfortunately, I think we might be headed to some dark days.
This is what they want. This is their wet dream. So when you understand that, this is their dream. This is what they want. So you like you said, being honest about the situation. This is what these people want. People have to stop living in this fantasy that the people running these control systems, aka governments, are some sort of a public service. It's complete nonsense. And to really stop living in a fantasy land about how evil these people actually are in many, many, many cases. Sure, there's people in government that are just working there, and but the people that are really running these places, they're very anti-human. I mean, they are sadistic, wicked, stupid people, if they're even people.
and the secondary component that is always in the shadows behind the world government push is depopulation. It's always there. Eugenics is just a little bit under the surface, and it invades their way of thinking. They think we want to create this world government. We want to create this group where we're in control of all of everyone on this planet. And then the next thought they have is, and it would be so much easier to do if it wasn't for all these people.
Mm-hmm.
And if only we could just eliminate a large portion of them. And again, this isn't me speculating that this is how they think. December 10th, 1974, National Security Center Memorandum 200, written by Henry Kissinger, outlines the United States policy towards the third world is that of, quote, depopulation.
Wow.
They put it in there. So it's not conspiracy theorists with their tinfoil hats speculating about what these people want. They write books about it. I
read lots of books
about it. They talk openly about it. It is only hidden to the extent that you don't believe them when they say that they want to remove people from the planet. They desperately want to do that. So knowing that that's what they want to do, and then seeing this technology component roll in and giving them the opportunity to possibly do this in the future should make people pay attention. That's why when I say the central bank digital currency is a hill to die on, I mean, anything that controls your ability to conduct business and makes it so that it is completely open for the government to control and watch and view and learn everything about you. We have to oppose that. If you give that up, you'll become a slave, a new, a neo slave. It won't be bars on your windows, but it'll be invisible bars that are technological in nature. So Probably
is the-
more diabolical.
Yeah, much more. This is the analogy of Jones Plantation. It's not the chains and whips were replaced by mind control, digital prison, brainwashing, and the digital prison, which is far more pernicious, far more dangerous. At least, like I've said 1,000 times, you're a slave with some ankle bracelets or ankle chains, and you can go, that's the guy that has the key to the chain. That's the guy
Right.
enslaving me. This is far deeper, far more powerful, far more pernicious, and far more widespread. It's going to cover the planet if we let it. Hopefully we won't.
Yeah.
All right. Where can people find you?
Macroaggressions.io is the best website, and activistpost.com, of course. Go there. Get some news there.
Get your
Bookmark it.
RSS. You can have an RSS.
We have
feed?
one. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
For those that know James Corbett, his work, his website, corbettreport.com, he's got a great little video explaining the RSS if you don't really know what it is. It's not that complicated. And it brings it'll bring activist posts to you every day.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And
in fact, I talked to Corbett about that last week. He said, I'm still getting activist posts on the RSS feed. As I invited him back on my show.
Oh, he was on your show? That'll be coming out?
Well, he's coming on in a couple of weeks.
Nice.
Yeah.
So people, you got to get Macroaggressions on it's on all the podcast apps, right?
Yeah, it's on.
Great podcast. Charlie has great guests, but then he also does these solo sods where he goes into. The only thing I would say about it is that I get like very depressed sometimes. These solo sods, like, oh my God, what is this world I'm living in? And then you've got the book Octopus of Global Control, and the one you talked about earlier, you wrote with Berwick, is called the Controlled Demolition. Go ahead.
I'll hold it up. Anyway, the controlled demolition of the American empire. I was like, how can we make it look like America's coming down? Like, what if we wrap building 7 with American flag? I sent it to Jeff. I'm like, I have an idea for the cover. I sent it over and he goes, it's perfect. It's great.
Nice.
So. And my newest book, Hypocrisy, is out. It came out in 2021. Second edition is out right now. I just redid it. New book cover, tightened it up on the inside, made an audio book for it as well. So if you're interested, if you've got a little bit of a drive, or you're in the gym doing something, you want to listen to it audio wise, Audible, Amazon, Spotify's new audiobook component. They've Findaway Voices is what they do, and you can get it anywhere. So check it out.
Macroaggressions.io, right?
Yep.
That's where I got the shirt.
Nice.
And all right, man. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Great talk. Bye.
Insanity is what I call society.
Okay, thanks for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed the show. If you want to follow me on Twitter, I'm at Tregsman with 2 G's and an S. We'll also have the links to our subscription and social media in the show notes, wherever you watched or listened to the episode. If you're currently supporting the show and Drew TV, thank you. And we'll see you next week.